If you're okay with it, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to probably put it on Facebook. Are y'all good? Are y'all good? You good? Okay. And since there's so many, I got to like step out here. All right, perfect. Thank you. What are you looking for?
I just selected the seat.
Oh, that's not it. No, this is the writing one. This is the writing one.
First class.
Got to get some more chairs.
Yeah, we ran out of our seats for our panel too.
This is the writing. This is the film. The film's not here.
Well, there's those up there. So there's a,
We're going to go ahead and get started because there's a lot of information to get through here. Let's see. Probably at 3. Because I don't want to do
do you want to close the door?
What's that?
Do you want to close the door for
No.
quiet? No.
There's someone else coming. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so if you.
What is going on, man? You want to come in? Yeah, there's rooms. There's chairs. All right, this is exciting, guys. I'm so happy that you guys could make it. More people here. Chairs.
And there's one.
Standing room.
Gotta retake that
Yeah,
picture.
I'm gonna have to retake that picture. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. This is great. Okay, so my name is Joshua Jack. I'm your host for this afternoon, and some of you know me, a couple people, and I appreciate you being here to support me. Before we get started, I just want to say, thanks to Pensacon for having us all here. What a treat, right? Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. All right. So, writing your first book without losing your mind. Now, it helps my turn on.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. Or the ramblings of a middle-aged man, what he has learned while losing his. Or being a 5th grader to a 3rd grader. Because to be quite honest, even though I have published, I'm not that far ahead of you guys. So who here has written, or who here has published a book? Nobody? Who wants to write? Well, obviously, hopefully all of you, because you're in here.
No, I don't think there was free chasing.
I can't say more.
Oh, okay, all right. So, man, you missed it. I said good things to Pensacon. Thank you for being here. And anyway.
Sorry.
No. He's the guy you should really thank, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. So, being a 5th grader to a 3rd grader, what does that mean? Like, well, remember when you were in elementary school and you were a 3rd grader and you thought, man, those 5th graders, they really know what they're doing. And now it's like, now you're into life and you don't even think about the 5th grader anymore. So, where I'm at in my publishing career, I'm kind of like that 5th grader. I'm not that far ahead. I'm still close enough where I can kind of point out different pitfalls, different things that I've learned in the past couple of years. All right, so about me, we're going to go through this real quickly because I got a ton of information and you guys got other places you have this. Oh, I was a U.S. Marine. I did some government contracting in overseas. I'm a law enforcement officer. Moving on. Okay, so I've written a lot over my life, but I really didn't do anything with it because early on when I was in the Marine Corps, I shared it with some people that, what's that? Well, it's not really the perfect place to share, creative writing with other people, And so I never really did anything with it at the time. But I wrote a couple different things and then just kind of set on a shelf for collecting dust. But in 2020, I was like, I got someone showed me a course, and I learned a little bit about publishing, so I did that. But Them Bones is my first story that I wrote, the first book I wrote.
Great book, you should buy it. I own it.
Yeah.
I should have brought it to get signed.
Oh, you should have. So this is that. And here again, I'm not here to sell anything. Anything that I reference, I am not a spokesperson. I'm just telling you what I do. And, if you get it, great. If not, Oh, that's another thing that we're going to talk about. That you got to figure it out on your own, because that's the next slide. Okay, so I started writing Them Bones in 2020. What happened in 2020? COVID. So we're all at home doing nothing. And I was like running out of the house, going nuts. And I was like, I always wanted to write a book. I never thought I could. And so I just started. I was like, you know what? And that's the thing, guys. You got to give yourself permission. You're like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to start, and it's okay to beat your head against the wall, because eventually you're going to break through that brick wall. But you have to be consistent, and you have to keep on doing it. All right. So I wrote Them Bones. It was a coming of age murder mystery. That's the only thing I had in my head. It's a coming of age murder mystery. And then lo and behold, 3 months later, I had a book done. The second book is along the same lines, set in the same area, which also focused. And the reason why I wrote The Hermit was when I was 8 years old in Southern Illinois, because I would go to Southern Illinois every summer and hang out with my farm aunts and uncle. They owned a farm, so I was always out there. Well, back then, when you're young and stupid, I was swimming in cow ponds, which I would not do today at all. But back then, that's what we do. And then my cousin, he's like, oh, hey, up in the woods up there's a hermit. And these things, here we are 30 years later, these things kind of stick in your head, and I'm like, I'm gonna write a book about that. And so I did. The next one is Grave Disturbance. I worked at Pensacon PD for a little bit, and so I was there for about a year and a half, so I know a little bit about the area. I grew up here, by the way. So I went to Pace High School. I'm from this area. I've been all over the world, and now I'm back. All right. Anyway, so Grave Disturbance. The reason why I got this idea was my wife, she's my editor, by the way. We'll talk about that. Sorry. But she showed me a news article, and it's called The Ghoul of Pensacola, or the Ghoul of Whitmire Cemetery, which is a cemetery in the area. And you can Google it, and it really happened. Back in the 50s, someone was going around digging up graves. Now, they never caught who did it, but, it's intriguing. And so when I'd read about it before and I forgot about it, but when she brought it back to my attention, I was like, oh man, this is really interesting. There's a story here. So my story of Grave Disturbance is, hey, there's a local Pensacola detective here. He gets called to go investigate a grave disturbance. And this is 50 years later. And so this is kind of like, so I write supernatural fiction. I forgot to say that. I write supernatural fiction and urban fantasy, so my stories have a little bit of a dark twist. But so this is what really happened 50 years later. Omer's Law, I started writing fantasy, and I really haven't done anything with that one. And then the entitled novel, which I never published, is another fantasy, and I'll do something with that eventually. In 2023, I wrote Something Wicked Waits, and no, that's okay. I wrote Something Wicked Waits, and so when I was growing up, there was a movie, obviously a book by Ray Bradbury called Something Wicked This Way Comes. And in the early 80s, Disney made a movie on that book. Now, I was 6 maybe when it came out, and that gave me the heebie-jeebies. Now, if you watched it today, the graphics or the CGI is laughable, and you'd be like, okay. But man, back then, that was cutting-edge stuff, and it was eerie. All I like to say this, here we are, 2023, and carnivals always get a bad rap. They're always bad guys. So my thought was, you know what? This time the carnival are good guys. So this, they get a weird call from a town they never heard of, and so they go there. Anyway, so that's Something Wicked Waits. Oh.
Carnival, you said?
Yes. All right, and this is my latest one that I published back in 24. At the end of 24, I'm working on book 2 right now. It's called Giroux, NOPD Detective. It's set in New Orleans. I had the opportunity to live there for several years, and that's about a werewolf or an OPD detective who happens to be a werewolf, and he's protecting, you know, the line between the good or the day world and night world. So that was done really well. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there to kind of tell you guys, hey, I've done this. I know what I'm talking about, and that's why I'm up here, is to share what I know. You know, sometimes you come in here and like, who's this guy? Well, that's why I want to try to. Okay, before we get started, I want to talk about the 4 stages of competence. This happens with every skill that you learn. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. Okay, so the first one is unconscious incompetence, followed by conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Man, try to get through that really quickly. All right, so with every skill that you learn in life, whether it be riding or driving a car, I'm going to use driving a car as an example. You know, unconscious incompetence, you're not even aware of it. Your parents are driving, you're 4 years old, 5 years old, you're not even aware that's a skill. But as you get older, you start becoming aware of it. It's like, oh, there's a car there. What's my mom doing? What's my dad doing? Like, this is strange. And then you go to driver's ed. And that's where the conscious competence comes in. You're really paying attention to what you're doing. You know, you're focusing on driving. You're looking at the mirror, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You know, these are things that you're really conscious on until eventually you hit the unconscious competence stage, and then it's just second nature. Like, now you're driving, you're eating a burger, you're talking on the phone, which you shouldn't be doing. But, you know, you're doing all these things. And if someone came to you and asked you, hey, how do you do this? You'd be hard-pressed to tell them actually how you do it. Or, you know, so that's with every skill. As you learn and get better at it, it's going to get to the point where it's just second nature. All right, moving on. So this is the journey. That's the mountaintop. There's many, so that's Pikes Peak right there. There are many ways to get to Pikes Peak, right? You can hike it. You can drive it. There's a cog train that you can take to get up to it. And so that's kind of how riding is. There are a lot of ways to get to the top of whatever you want to do. And there's, you know, and that's, unfortunately, there's no gold nugget that's going to get you there. You got to figure it out on your own. And we'll talk about that next. My process and my advice. The best advice you don't want to hear, because I was the same way. You got to write. Right? We're all looking for that golden nugget, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Because we're looking for that quick shortcut. Unfortunately, we live in a world where shortcuts are supreme. There are none in writing, unfortunately. How did I get started? I already told you a little bit. COVID. I always wanted to. Man, I keep my head wrong. There we go. So I started writing 500 words a day. When I made the decision that I'm going to write, and it has to be something that you have to do. This is going to be your child. Are you going to feed your child? You're going to feed your child. And that's the same thing with writing. Are you going to write? You better feed it. So 500 words a day in 90 days is 45,000 words. That's a short novel. So in 3 months, you can have a short novel. I mean, heck, even if you wrote 2,000, even if you wrote 500 words 4 times a week, that's 2,000 words a week. That's 8,000 words a month. When you start breaking it down, see, and that's the problem. Like when people look at the mountaintop and they're like, "Oh man, look at that peak up there, man. That's way." Don't worry about that. Worry about the step that you're taking right now. If you keep on taking steps, you're going to get to the top. You'll get there. I promise. As long as you keep doing it. You know, that's the big one. All right. So what I do is I write 500 words a day. Every time I hit 5,000 words, I send it to a small group of people that I trust. And it's very important. And here again, there's many different ways. I'm sharing what I do, right? You got to protect your work when you do this, though, because it has to be people you trust that will give you they'll give you honest feedback. At this point, you're not looking for ideas because we all have ideas. Everybody has a story. Everybody has something that they want to write about. I have so many ideas. I don't have enough time in my life to write them. So I'm not looking for ideas at this point. I am looking for, hey, is this working? Or is it keeping your interest? Are there plot holes that you're seeing that I'm not? Because sometimes when you're writing, you're a little too close to the tree to see the forest. Especially when you're writing for 3 months and you forgot the first half. It happens. All right. Okay, editing. Huge. Has to be done. I mean, you can put slop on the page, and you can post it tomorrow, which we'll talk about in a second. But I will say this: when it comes to editing, finish your story first. Because if you edit as you're doing it, you will never complete your story. Perfection is the enemy of completion, and the only way you're going to finish is to just keep going. Now, I will say this, if you see a plot hole, write it down. Get it out of your head, write it on a note, you'll come back to it. You'll come back to it in the second draft. Now, I'm not saying, like, if you see a couple things in a couple sentences earlier that you need to fix it. But don't spend time noodling it to death, because you got a story to finish. And you can always noodle it later. But at a certain point, it has to be done. Like, because you can, you know, in the editing process, you can keep on doing it, keep on doing it, keep on doing it. But at a certain point, you just got to put it out there. And then, you know, go from there. All right, moving on. Okay, my process, formatting. Okay, so after you've done your editing, it comes to formatting. Everything takes its own little. If you do ebooks, you can format it a little bit differently. If you know, on Amazon and other places, you got to format it a little bit different. There's different rules in different places. There's different programs that I use, which we'll talk about in a second. Book covers. Book covers are huge. When I first started, I didn't know I was going to continue. I was like, I just want to get this done. I want to get it out here just to see what happens. And we'll talk about that next. But book covers are important. You need to, because if your books aren't interesting, they're not going to read it. Or if it doesn't catch people's interest is what I mean. All right. Okay. And so after you're done with book covers, it goes to beta readers. And so this is a larger group of people that you trust not to, that will read over it. And this is the last chance for typos. And no matter how many times it gets edited, and no matter how many times people read it, there's always going to be a typo. Always. Doesn't matter. Okay, more. Write what you know and research. Now, when I first started writing and people would tell me, hey, write what you know, I would be like, what does that mean? Now, some of you are probably like, well, you're in the military, you did this, you did. That doesn't matter. Like, people are going to gravitate towards you because you know something that other people know, and people are going to gravitate towards that. And that's okay. And then also, where you grew up. Pensacola is a great place to write. If you've been to other cities, you can write about that because you've been there. I like to use real-world locations, and that's another thing when you do your research. Make sure what you're writing about is somewhat true. Because you don't want to do anything that's going to take the reader, especially if they know the area, out of the story. Now, I will say this, write what you know, it is your story, so you can change it up if you want. My first book, Them Bones, it's about, it happened in a small town where, I spent my summers in Southern Illinois, but the particular church that I needed didn't fit, so I just moved the church. I can do that. I'm the creator. I'm the writer, and it doesn't matter, So you can't have leeway to do to write what you know, and you can change it. And also, we all know conversations. We all know people, right? We all have seen different conflicts or different things, and there's people I know that are in my books. I've taken some attributes from them and some attributes to this person, maybe made a new person, maybe So there's so many things that you can do when I say write what you know. Establishing routine beats writer's block. Everybody's always like, well, how do you get a writer's block? I don't. If you establish a routine, and you write 500 words every day, or if you're in a writing habit, if you create the habit, it's going to show up. And I'll talk a little bit about some other exercises you can do in a little bit to kind of help that along. Right. Imposter syndrome. It's huge. Everybody has it. I mean, I have it up here. Like, why am I up here talking? I don't know. But, I have done some things, and that's what gives me the credentials to stay up here and talk. But imposter syndrome, no matter what you do, you're going to have it. And then especially when you get to the point where you start sharing it with other people, it's really going to be bad. But just remember, everybody has it. It's okay. It's a normal process. It's a normal thing to do. When you get to the point, if you do get to the point where you actually publish and you put it on Amazon or wherever you put it, pricing. Don't sell yourself short. Because as soon as you start getting money for your work, you'll realize there's validity to it. Until you do, you're always going to feel bad about it. It's just the way it is. So my rule of thumb when it comes to pricing, and this is just my own thing, I usually do 99 cents per 10,000 words. Now, there is a cap to that. Once I get beyond 50,000, that's for ebooks, by the way. Paperback, you got to make up. I'm getting too technical here, but paperback, there's a lot of overhead on that, so you got to make those like $15 or whatever. One second, hold questions to the end because there's so much information. But if you do have questions, hold on to that. But I'm glad that you have that. But like I said, especially ebooks, 99 cents per 10,000 words. But once you hit to like 60, you kind of want to keep your books around $5. You know? But there's a lot of people that want to get their stuff for free, and that's cool at first. But at a certain point, you're never going to grow unless you actually sell it, because you got to reinvest. Because the money you make, you're reinvesting in those. If you decide to go that route. Negative reviews, it happens. There's going to be 20% of people that are going to love you no matter what. There's going to be 20% of people that can't stand what you do no matter what you do. And so you got 60% in the middle that, you know, they're swayable. You can do whatever you want. Well, you can't do whatever you want, but you know, they're swayable where they might come around. Okay, so, but here again, going back to covers, when I first started, that was my cover for my first book. I did that. And I mean, it's silly, it's laughable now, but you know, but the nice thing about being an indie publisher is you can take it down. You can update the covers. You can do whatever you want. A little transparency. All right, so goals. What do you want out of this? Is it a hobby? And if it is, that's great. If all you want to do is write a book, great. But some of you might want to turn this into a business, and if you do, well, businesses take processes. Businesses take, you know, constant things that you got to do over and over again. So, you know, you got to figure out what your goals, and they can change. When I first started, I didn't know I was going to do all this, but I proved myself I could, and so I continued on. And it's just amazing how far you can go if you actually just give yourself a chance. I implore everybody, and you'd be surprised what you can do if you just try. You got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in your knowledge. This does take money, time, and you got to trust yourself to be able to do it. I spent a lot of money in like courses, and then also just the books themselves. I mean, like it costs money to edit, you know, the book covers, things of that nature. So, like I said, if you treat it like a business, it will be, you know, an easy business. So, next, what do you want to write? I'm looking at the time because there's so much information. I'm like, I don't want to jam people up. So, writing standalones or series. This is big. So so my first 4 or 5 things were standalones, and now I'm writing a series. So we all know who Stephen King is, right? But we'd be hard pressed to tell you what, you know, like all of his books, right? I don't know. But we know who Stephen King is. We know who Dean Koontz is. I could probably tell you a couple of his books, but we know who he is. Do you know who wrote the Jack Reacher books? Yes. But did everybody know that? No. Because that's the difference between writing a standalone and a series. So when you start, you're going to probably write standalones, or you can write a series. But the issue is going to be, what do you want to be known for? What is your brand? Is it going to be you, or the series that you're writing? Now, that can change up. I mean, you don't have to stay in a series. But usually, if you do start with a series, you're kind of chained to it. Because people, you know, because we're in a Netflix binge society. Which is great, because if they like your first book, man, they're going to read them all. So, and then there's like added pressure. All right. So why genre? Man, when I first started, I thought there was like 5 genres. You know, you had your big 5. You know, you had your like romance, horror, adventure, you know, things like that. But I've come to find that there are many genres and subgenres and subgenres. In fact, there's some that I can't even talk about. I turned red. I don't write romance, okay? All right. But you got to write what you enjoy, because this is going to take you, whatever your story is, it's going to take you a few months to do. And so you got to really enjoy what you do. Or it has to be interesting enough to keep you coming back, because there's going to be times where you're going to be frustrated with it. Different approaches. Okay, so there's a plotter outliner. Those are the people that are really into outlining everything. They know everything about the story before they even start. You know, so we grew up with the 3-act play. You know, there's certain things that happen in the first act, there's certain things that happen in the second act, there's certain things. And so every genre has their own nuances to that, and you have to study that. I don't do that. I'm a pantser, so I'm this person. They call it discovery writer, pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. Every time I sit down, I have no idea what's going to happen. Now, I have a general place where I want to go, but I don't know exactly. I mean, things change. And for me, it works because if I knew, now I will say this, sometimes I do know the end, or I know where I want it to go. I don't know how it's going to get there. But if I knew everything, it wouldn't keep me interested enough to come back to writing. That's just me.
I mean, if you're interested while writing it, I mean, surely the reader would be interested while they're reading it.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
you
I
don't
mean,
know where it's going, you will then.
well, that's one of the strings. So I say it's kind of like a flashlight method, right? So the way I write, I'm in a dark room. I turn on the flashlight. Okay, it's over here. That's where I'm going. Okay, I'm in the dark again. All right, okay, turn the flashlight. Okay, well this is obvious. And so that's what works for me. And then there's the planter, which they kind of do a little bit of both at varying levels. Indie versus traditional. I'm not traditional. I'm 100% indie author. I can't really talk about the traditional side, but I can tell you a little bit about the indie side. The positive and the negative of being an indie author is there are no gatekeepers. That's great, but it's also bad because everybody can do it, which is fine, but you have to, so since everybody can do it, sometimes people do it half-assed, excuse my language, and so, the grammar might not be good. So you have that stigma to come over. Oh, you're an indie author. But if you treat it like a business, because this is you, this is what you're putting yourself out, and you do the best that you can, you create a name for yourself, you put out good products, people come back. It's name recognition. But anyway, so like I said, there's no gatekeepers. You can put some stuff on a paper and you can get out tomorrow. You could. I don't recommend it, but you could. And like I said, since there are no gatekeepers, you're the one that is 100% in control. You're in control of the writing. You're in control of the book cover, the format. Everything about this business is you. Now you hire specialists to do those things because I would rather hire someone. Now I can. But I'd rather hire someone that knows Photoshop, that has spent, their knowledge to do that, than me making that one I created. Because it shows. It's going to take me longer to create that cover than for them to make that cover. So you want to go to your experts if you can. And then, when you go to the traditional, now I have seen it. Here, I'll go through this real quick. All right, so I have seen it where people start off indie authors, they create a readership. And then they go get an agent because they're like, well, hey, look at all what I got. And the agent's like, well, yeah, totally, we'll sign you up. And then they'll go to the big five or the publishers, and then some of them get a deal because if you're bringing stuff to the table, now the downside of that is it takes time. Like if I finished and this is in here again, this isn't 100% like experience. This is what I've read, okay? But some people they finish their book, they got to go to get an agent. That can take a few months. Then then they query to the publishers. That could take another few months, and then the editing process on their side. And it's not really your book at that point because they can come back and say, "Hey, we didn't really like this. Could you rewrite this part?" And which okay, but it slows it down. However, but I've also seen it the other way too, where traditional writers that are with publishers, they will go indie because now they have the readership and they can make more money because now they cut out. The publisher's cut. However, I do say that if you do go the traditional route, 5% of a watermelon is probably better than 100% of a grape. All right, but you can make that grape grow because that is within your control. All right, first impressions last. Since this is your business, you got to do the best you can because if you put out now, thankfully, like I said, if like with your reviews, if something's bad. And it's consistently bad, or they keep on bringing up an issue, well, you can fix it. That's a good thing about that's a good thing about bad reviews sometimes is you can get good information from it that you're like, oh, well, I never really thought about it. And that's another thing going back to the whole bad review thing. Bad reviews aren't bad in the sense that if they're having a bad day, they might have a bad day, and they just you're in their target. But sometimes they actually provide good information, like, oh, this is good, but the character's a little whatever. So sometimes you can actually use that for your benefit. All right. Okay, moving on. All right, so I created this thing. You know, you create your first draft and you're laughing at it. Ha ha. You get rags. You really can't because the next process is editing and it's a bigger guy with a bat. And then there's publishing, the whole aspect of that, and it's a bigger guy with a bat. And then social media and advertising. So you can write a great book, but if you can't get it in front of people, no one's gonna read it. So that's. Now with traditional, they usually have people cover all that. When you're independent, it's all you. Distribution. So I go through Kindle Direct Publishing for my ebooks. Now I'm 100% for my ebooks. I'm 100% on Amazon, and the reason why I do that because with exclusivity through Amazon, they have Kindle Unlimited. So people that have subscriptions to Kindle Unlimited, they can read your books for free. But you get paid like maybe half a cent per page read. So it's it creates a little money, but then also it's no I mean they can read your book and they you get free not free reviews, but they're reading it and you'll get reviews and stars and things like that, and that will build your readership, especially when you're first starting out. And it's not you don't have to put all your books up there, but you can do different ones at different times, and it usually lasts about 90 days, and you can extend it. But yeah, you do have to be 100% exclusive to get that little bit. All right. And then for my ebooks, or not my ebooks, I'm sorry, my paperbacks, I go through Amazon and Ingram Sparks because Amazon's print on demand. If someone orders a paperback through Amazon, they'll print it and ship it. I don't have to have anything in my garage. Same thing with Ingram Sparks. The nice thing about Ingram Sparks is that's the aggregate for everybody else. So like you can go find my book in Barnes and Noble. You can have them order it. Anywhere you think of, my book is there because of Ingram Sparks. Because they take a cut, but it saves me from having to go to each store and be like, hey, can I sell some books? So they do that for me. They do take a cut though, a pretty big one. And eventually, I have to look at other options, but it works for now. And then if you get to the point where you want to do audiobooks, audible.com, which is another Amazon thing, they have some pretty good programs. They have a way to, you can find your narrators on there, and that works pretty well as well. So this is what I use. I use Scrivener. So Scrivener is a writing program. It is like Microsoft Word on steroids. Scrivener is great because it's very robust, and I'm only using like 10% of what it's capable of. Like I just write. So when my first couple books I wrote under Microsoft Word, and when I was going back to try to fix things earlier, you'd have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. With Scrivener, it breaks it down by chapters. So if there's something I need to fix, I just click on the chapter I go to and fix it. There's also a chord option where you can take different notes and put it different places. And it works pretty well. Microsoft Word I still use, so after I'm done with my first draft, I'll export it to Microsoft Word, and then I use Pro Writing Aid to highlight all the issues that I might have missed, and there's quite a bit sometimes.
Like grammatical errors.
Like grammatical errors, and then just like weird word usages. And so that's nice because it kind of alerts me to like, oh, I need to look at this. After that, I use Atticus. That's what I use to format. Apple users use Vellum, but I don't use Apple. I use PC and things like that. Which one? Vellum. Vellum. Yep. And then this thing right here, it could be a placebo, brain.fm. It's music. Some people, write listening to music. Some people, write in total silence. This, here again, it could be a complete placebo, but for me it works. It's music with waves, and it's supposed to help with creativity or whatever. I don't know. I use it. It seems to work. And then your notebook, which I tell you guys this. It's right back to me because because when you're writing, sometimes I forget to take notes, and you'll be halfway through the book and what's this guy's name again? or what day of the week I'm in, or the guy's the person's eye color turns green and what are we doing? I mean, it happens. So take notes of what you're doing, preferably at the end of each session. But I know how it is. Life gets in the way. Online resources and classes. Okay, so these are big. Gotta move quickly. Online resources and classes. Facebook has a group called 20 Books to 50K. It is a phenomenal resource. It used to be better, but things have kind of changed. But that's a course you gotta like. It's not just. I mean, it's not open to the public. You kind of gotta get into it. I think you gotta answer some questions or whatever. Say yes, I follow the guidelines or whatever. But that is a group that does not. It's not behind a paywall, which is fantastic. It's free, and it's authors helping authors with whatever. Now they don't suffer fools. Part of the rules are do a search of your question first, because they don't want to have to keep regurgitating the same or turning the same information over and over again, because there's a lot of people that come in and ask the same questions, where the questions have already been asked very thoroughly. Another nice thing about that is people share their journeys from time to time, and it's kind of cool to see other people from where they're at. It helps, kind of light that fire and keep that fire burning within you, like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. Author Nation. So 20 Books to 50K used to have an event in Las Vegas once a year. They have recently renamed it to Author Nation, and they do that, I think, every November, I believe. The guy that was in charge of 20 Books to 50K, he split off on his own, and he created another Facebook group called Successful Indie Author, which is a pretty decent one. Okay, so this is where I've learned the most, and these classes are kind of expensive, but they're worth it. LearnSelfPublishing.com. They also have a podcast, which I highly recommend. This is kind of what helped me out when I first began. They have classes on marketing. They have classes on writing. They have a lot of different things that will help. But that's where I got started. Okay. So there's some different books out there. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This talks just about creativity in general. In fact, I've used one of these exercises before, and we'll talk about that here in a second, where when it comes to writing, so for a year up until before I started writing, I started doing conscious writing. Just every morning for, when I had time, I would take 3 pages and I would just write. Whatever came to mind, right? Yes, no, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just get it out on paper, because it kind of builds up a skill set of being like, whatever, just let it go. And so anyway, that exercise is in that book. It has some other things in there. It's pretty good. The other one is the War of Art: Breakthrough the Blocks and When You're in Creative Battles by Stephen Pressfield. That's a good book because it talks about, one of the things I remember from that book is it talks about tension. No matter what we do in life, there's always going to be tension before you do it, right? Like going to the gym. I don't really want to go. Sitting in the hot seat writing. I don't really want to do it. Because there's always going to be pressure. Because in life, we want homeostasis, right? We want to stay safe and stable and all like that. And every time you do something a little bit different, man, your body's like, oh man, don't do that. So this talks about that, and when you know what it is, you can fight through it. All right, and then for writing in general, I'm writing by Stephen King. I got a lot out of that personally. Next steps. Okay, so for the next steps for y'all, for those that want to write and want to get out there, start small. Just start writing, because like I said, this is where you learn what works for you. And that's the only way to get it, is through experience. I would say start, like I said, start with a notebook. Just conscious stream writing. Just get it out there. Get it out there. You can take notes, whatever. But eventually, you're going to start going to the next, starting small. Start writing sentences. Start writing, like, scenes. If you saw something that day, write about it. It doesn't have to be long. Write a fight scene. Write a romance scene. Just keep writing. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get doing it. I would say do it daily because, like I said, it's a skill. It's a skill that you've got to build. It's like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, that muscle's not going to be strong. But if you do it every day, that muscle will get stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually it's just like, you're a beast. So you start small. Like I said, write scenes, and then write a short story. It doesn't have to be long. A beginning and an end. And then basically it's just write. But you keep on getting bigger and better with each one. Like my first novel was 45,000 words. This second one was 60, this one was 75, this one was 85, and this is 106. So every time you do a project, make it a little bit bigger and better. All right? And then the caveat to that is because, well, not caveat, but once you do it, you prove to yourself that you can do it. And then once you prove to yourself you can do it, well, you might as well keep on going. All right? Okay, so we talked about that mountaintop. You get to the mountaintop, and it's great. But guess what? There's other mountaintops. You know, you want to go. You want to get up there, and so that's the great thing and the bad thing about getting to the mountaintop the first time. I mean, it's because when you get to the mountaintop the first time, ignorant is not a bad word. You're ignorant about the process, and thank God I was, because man, if sometimes when you compare yourself to others, that's the thief of joy. You know, and then you don't think you can do it. But if you just focus on what your journey consists of, and you get to the top, man, that's a great feeling. But like I said, you get to the top, you kind of stumble your way up because you don't know any better. But then when you get to the next mountain, you know exactly what it takes. But by that time, you have the skills, and you can do it. All right? That's how you can get in touch with me, jack.com. That's my email. If you want to find my books, that's the QR code you can get to Amazon. Like I said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions at any time. Shoot me an email, but be sure to be real. I get a bunch of like AI. I'm like, oh, oh, so annoying.
So you don't want to buy my gold pills?
Oh well, you know, I might. No, not to that age yet, but but no. All joking aside, I'm more than happy to share what I know. You know, it's all a journey. And you know, I'm happy that you're here. So, any questions? Yes. Oh, yeah, you got a question.
Yeah.
I've been holding on to that one.
Yeah, it's just a question kind of popped in my head. How much of the pricing is that, you know, cents per thousand words, and how much of it is like looking at, say, like, you know, length isn't everything, but it's like, do you compare against books of similar length in the genre you're targeting to get a
Well,
pricing,
yes and
or-
no. So, yes and no. Like, when you're first starting, no one knows who you are. And so once you build a followership, then yes, you can start. Because sometimes you'll get on some of those ebooks, or like, and that's another thing. Do your research. All right, go to the different genres on Amazon and start looking at other things that are kind of like what you're writing, and then you kind of get an idea for what is normal. But there's some people on there that they'll put like $9 for an ebook. I've never heard of them. I'm not going to shell out $9 for that. That's just me. Someone will. And that's another thing too. Whatever you write, there's someone out there that's going to read it. So whatever it is, someone's going to read it, and they'll want to. Unless it's, and like I said, it kind of goes back to the whole research and then putting your best foot forward. Because if you do anything that's going to jar them out of the story, you lost them, and they'll never come back. But anyway, as far as the pricing, like I said, for me, it's just up until about $5. And then, like I said, once I get a readership, and once I get more and more popular, maybe I'll change that to 6 or 7. But that's probably not going to happen. I mean, not this year. Like I said, it's all about mindset. You can do it. You really can. If I can do it, you can do it. You just got to be stubborn and just keep on beating your head against the wall. Any other questions? Well, you have a question. You better make up one now.
That program.
Scrivener?
Scrivener, yes. How much is it?
Oh gosh.
I think it's like $50 or something.
Yeah, it's not very. I think it's sub 100.
Yeah, there's a 30-day trial, and then it's like $50, and you only have to pay again when they're going to roll out Scrivener 4 or whatever. So it's not a subscription; it's a professional license.
You use the trial first to see if you like using it.
And actually, on the trial is it's 30 days of usage, not 30 days from your install. So if you set it down for like a week or something, you don't lose a week on it.
Oh, that's
Pretty nice. I love Scrivener. I use it a lot.
What's that? I think. I use it on the computer. I think it has one for if you're an Apple user. I think it has an app for an Apple user.
It says Mac OS, Windows, iOS, and Linux.
Yeah.
So the iOS version is limited, like it can't do snapshots, which is unfortunate. But if you just want to like if you just want to like dashing up your phone or like you prefer to write on an iPad, yeah, you can do it.
He knows all kinds of tech stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad he's here because I would have been like.
Oh yeah.
All right. Did you get something out of this? All right, perfect. Well, that's all I really care about. I'm glad that you guys did. If you have any other questions or you want to come talk to me afterwards, I'm more than happy to discuss. Other than that, man, I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad to be able to share the knowledge.
Thank you.
Oh, great.